Everyone's posting Spotify Wrapped. Most people see a cute music recap. I see a behavioral blueprint, a system that quietly trains you to outsource your identity to an algorithm. Spotify Wrapped is an annual data experience where Spotify compiles a user's listening history from the past year and transforms it into a personalized visual story. It highlights your most played songs, top artists, genres, total minutes listened, and unique listening personality, all presented in a shareable narrative format designed for social media. Wrapped is essentially a curated identity snapshot built from your consumption data, a blend of analytics, storytelling, and social signaling that turns personal listening habits into a public shareable narrative. Let's cut through the fluff. Wrapped is not about your unique story. It's a mass-produced template that says, here's a clean shareable identity snapshot. No reflection, no effort, just tap share. You're not writing your story. You're approving a summary, a system generated for its own purposes, and pretending it's you. That's the first behavioral blueprint here. Identity by consumption, packaged by platforms. No discipline, no introspection, no craftsmanship. You're not influencing, you're being influenced. It's interesting because it reveals exactly how identity is being shaped today. At scale, automatically, and without awareness. If you lead people, institutions, or narratives, you cannot afford to misunderstand what is happening here. Wrapped is a brilliant demonstration of how platforms now shape self-perception, public signaling, group belonging, and behavior. It's not a music feature, it's a behavioral architecture. It extracts your data, builds you a narrative, socializes it, and rewards you for accepting and broadcasting it. That cycle is now foundational to how public opinion and personal identity are created. Many institutions and many high-level leaders often underestimate this shift. They assume identity is still built through personal values, institutional roles, reputation, lived experience. But for most populations, and increasingly even for elites, identity is shaped algorithmically, not philosophically. Wrapped is a harmless example. The mechanisms behind it are not harmless. They scale, they repeat. They train people to outsource their narrative to platforms. Wrapped is an effortless status. Low-cost identity, high visibility. Prestige is fragmenting, and influence is driven by microsignals, not authority. 3 influence mechanisms Wrapped reveals. A. Identity automation. People accept a prepackaged version of who they are, created by a company with its own incentives. Leaders and institutions must understand identity and influence can now be externally engineered. B. Algorithmic belonging. Wrapped assigns people to tribes based on data clusters. A sense of community is created, not organically, but computationally. This matters for institutions because belonging is now programmable. Influence is a system. C. Frictionless signaling sharing. Wrapped becomes an effortless status move. Public identity becomes low cost, low effort, high visibility. For leaders and institutions, this means prestige is fragmenting and influence is increasingly driven by microsignals, not legacy authority. Institutions still communicate in statements, policies, briefings, campaigns. Platforms communicate in micro-identities, shareable stories, behavioral loops. Wrapped succeeds because it compresses identity into a frictionless narrative. Institutions fail because they still believe identity and influence is built through documents, press releases, or formal messaging. If you cannot reduce your narrative to a form the system can carry, you disappear. Leaders and institutions who underestimate these dynamics pay 3 prices: loss of narrative control, because platforms tell your story faster than you do; loss of relevance, because younger audiences don't resonate with legacy identity models; loss of influence, because influence now operates through behavioral patterns, not authority structures. Wrapped is a mirror. It shows what identity looks like in a frictionless world. Leaders and institutions who don't understand frictionless identity cannot influence populations shaped by it. Even elite professionals believe they are above this. They're not. Executives signal identity through book lists, events attended, causes supported, affiliations displayed, curated public personas. Wrapped is just the consumer version of what you already do. If you don't see your own signaling, you cannot see the signaling of the systems around you. If you lead teams, countries, institutions, publics, or narratives, you need one thing above all: the ability to design your own influence blueprint instead of inheriting one from the system. I am Andre, a social psychologist, and I help leaders and institutions do exactly that. Build identity with intention, design influence structures deliberately, and regain narrative control in an algorithmic environment. If you want the executive briefing and the blueprint framework, send me a message with blueprint. Leadership is no longer about authority. It's about architecture.